What is going on, everybody? Darrell, the Whiskey Saint. We are back for another Whiskey Wednesday review, guys. I know I took a few weeks off and actually dived into some blind samples, but we had some battles in the works, so I had to stay on my toes. But we are back. Going to start getting back into some reviews here, guys, and we're going to be talking about today some new bottles coming from Rare Character. Got a different label on them. They're actually called Brook. I'm going to show you the bourbon right now. They came out with a bourbon and a rye, guys. They're both single barrels. Bourbon is a 10-year age statement. The rye is a 11-year age statement. Like I said, all single barrels, all barrel proof, and all supposed to be bangers. So sit with me. If you're new to our channel, hit that like and subscribe. We're about to kick the show off. Cheers. Welcome back, guys, and we're going to just get to pouring these and let them let them sit for a few seconds. They had some time to air. You can see there's a decent amount of air in this bottle. I shared this whiskey with a few people, so it's definitely had its time. Give the rye a little bit of a pour. Cap these. So I don't really know too much about these bottles, guys. I know they're produced from Rare Character. They are sourcing, so the bourbon, from my understanding, is rumored to be James Beam or Jim Beam. There's nothing set in stone to really solidify that or confirm it. But I will say, upon tasting it initially in the first two times after that, in terms of profile, that's probably the closest out of Kentucky distilleries that I can think of this actually being. As for the rye is Indiana, so that's an 11-year MGP. They said 126.22 proof on the rye, and the bourbon coming in at a whopping 129.35. So we're just going to swirl this up a bit, guys. And we're going to go in on this bourbon. I'm going to show you a couple stats on it right now in terms of cost. It is pricey, guys. Rare Character's usually up there around that 1 to 120 range for their standard single barrels. They range 4 to 6 years. You're not typically seeing 10-year age statements on Rare Character products for the most part. Hence why this one, being as limited as it is north of 200. But let's go in on our notes, guys. Cheers. See, for me, right up front, like I said, it's rumored to be Jim Beam, but it reminds me of just a very, very well put together, like Knob Creek and/or Booker's Little Book, like literally like a hybrid. Like if all of them kind of like combine for like the best parts of each of them, that's kind of what you get out of this bourbon right here. Nice oak. You could tell it's got some decent age on it. There's some nice spice up there as well. Getting like this nice like cherry cola note, which is pretty lovely on this. But yeah, that oak is definitely present. That's like right up front, smack you in your face. Not overly oaky, but just it's something that has some 8 to 10 year old stuff. It doesn't come across young. It is 10 years old. It's a single barrel, so it's not older or younger. Well, I guess technically it could be older, but it's no younger than 10 years old. But yeah, just a very put together nose. Nice oak. That cherry cola is there. Spice is there. Getting a little bit of citrus in there as well. Almost like a cherry pie like mix. Like if you took like the cherry filling and mixed it around with like the graham cracker or the pie crust, it gives you both of those hints, like some cinnamon in there, some cherry, that graham cracker. Just very nice. Let's go in for a taste, guys. Oh, that tastes, that first sip lights you up. I'm going to switch over to the nose, though, guys, because I did talk about it. I do enjoy this nose. Could it have been slightly better? Yes. So I did give it 1 thumbs up versus 2. Definitely nice. It's appealing on the nose. I think for those standard bourbon drinkers, right? Like that, just that quintessential bourbon, nice oak, age, depth. This is it. It's not above, like, I'm not going to say it's on like top tier, like some very, very good pours that I had in the past, just say like the Elijah Craig Pirate bottles and GTSs, those carry a little bit more depth. But then again, those are probably a bit older too, right? But for what this is at a 10-year age statement, in terms of depth and nose and proof, it all hits you right up there up front, which for me is better than most of like the standard 10-year-old offerings that are probably on the shelf currently right now. So did get a one thumbs up instead of 2, but not to take away from that nose. That nose is really nice. As for the palate, guys, this thing is a flavor bomb up front. That first sip was just lights on. I'm going to take another sip though. This is really where this whiskey shines, guys. As soon as it hits your mouth, you're like, well, literally from front to mid to back, it just transitions so nicely across the tongue. Like you don't lose any of the flavor. Sometimes I'll take a sip and it hits me up front or the mid or the back and it's lacking on the other parts of the mouthfeel. But this hits every single aspect of that mouthfeel. Flavors are still constant on the tongue right now. Finish is just going. Flavors are still going. Like I don't even have to take another sip, guys, to still get some of that flavor right there. Like this is pretty nuts. Talking about the finish, right? That finish, I had to give it 2 thumbs up. That palate, definitely a 2 thumbs up as well. Like it doesn't really seem to be lacking much, right? On that mouthfeel, it's very viscous, sticks to your mouth. Like it's off that second sip, guys. It's still on the inside of my cheeks and on my tongue. Like I literally don't have to take another sip right now. And it's like I almost had it like, 5 seconds ago. And it's probably pushing maybe another minute already. Man. Really, really nice mouthfeel on this. And that palate, yeah, it shines. It shines. There's like no knock on that palate whatsoever. I'm pretty sure I gave it either a 9 or a 10 in terms of palate because it hits, guys. It hits. Talking about flavor, right? This doesn't lack in terms of flavor. I had this right at a 90. So there's nothing, in terms of our scoring breakdown, none of the flavor factors got under a 9 for me. Right, the experience had a couple 10s in there, hence why it's at a 92. The only knock for me is the value, guys. It's tough, right? 10-year age statement. I know it's limited. It's rare character, but I got that as an 80. Like it can either go either way, right? For those that really love rare character, they're probably going to really, really like this bourbon, and they can maybe justify that value because it's so limited. But like I just kind of put that up against, some other 9-year or 10-year age statement whiskeys at just say $60, right? Is this thing worth 4 times as much? And that's kind of where I got that 8 from. It probably could have been a 7. Some may put it at a 9, but at $250, am I out there going to purchase a bottle or looking for one? Probably not. But if one just kind of fell in my lap after tasting this, I wouldn't be shot away from purchasing one at that price point, even though it is a little pricey, you know what I mean? But it is a very good bourbon. And I don't really have much that tastes like this on my bar, which kind of weighs into the decision of picking something up or not, right? If I have something that's pretty similar, and I can just bypass that and just go a cheaper route, then I tend to do that. But this is pretty unique in terms of profile. I really like how that mouthfeel, like I haven't really had many whiskeys that just have that intense mouthfeel. Like really, really nuts, guys. Going into the final score, this scored a 90 for me. If you look at my 24 rank, and I haven't ranked too many whiskeys that came out in 2024. We're looking at 23 of them so far. This ranked, I believe it was tied, like a 3-way tie, I believe, at 90 for third. And if we're looking at all time since last year, scoring 107 Whiskeys, this one ranked 13 or is tied for 13 with a couple 90s. From everything that I reviewed so far, guys. Like this is a really, really good whiskey. I'm going to take one more sip, guys, and we're going to dive into the rye. Yeah, just each sip just gets better and better. That sip right there was just cherry, spicy, oaky, cola. I didn't get it too much of the cherry pie filling right there, but it's so like cherry forward, which is kind of odd. Like I've only had that on a couple Beam products. Don't know if this is Beam for sure, but a couple Knob Creeks and a Knob Creek 12-year cash strength had a very, very cherry forward nose and palate, which I adored. And I'm getting hints of this on that sip that I just took. So I am going to take a little sip of water, guys, and we're going to take a look at this rye. So the rye, guys, 11-year MGP, suggested retail $200, could be upwards to maybe $250 depending where this gets released. 126.22 proof. An 11-year. So MGP for 2024 has been putting out a lot of 11-year MGP or a lot of 11-year ryes. And I've had the opportunity to taste, I believe, 3 or 4 different barrels. I had a couple of I had an OKI, I had a Traverse City, I had this one, and I believe it wasn't Dark Arts, but I know Cam, Drums and Drams, had an 11-year rye whiskey. I can't remember the brand. It was a pick of his, and I've had that. So I've got to taste a few different versions of them, and they've all been pretty good, guys. Like solid. It's just the price sometimes. When you're looking at 11-year MGP, you're looking at, what, 200 plus typically, for most companies. But I will say this is probably the most expensive out of the 4 that I've had. I think they've all been sub 200, some in the price range of like 120, which is absolutely crazy for the experience that you get on those whiskeys. But I'm going to give this a little swirl, guys, and we're going to dive in. Cheers, my man Top Dog. Thanks for the Glen, buddy. Can't miss out on my man Vic on the other one, too. Big Vic, thanks, buddy. So let's dive in, guys. So no denying that this is a rye, but it's not dill forward by any means. But you do get you get a citrus note up front, that rye spice is there. You get a good amount of oak as well. Like there's no denying that it's a rye, nor does it come across youthful by any means. Some vanilla in there, some orange. It's almost like orange peel. But it's dark. So under that citrus note, there's a lot of darkness coming from, I think, just maybe the barrel char of the oak and that age as well. Pretty nice nose. We're going to dive in for a taste, guys, as we talk about this. Cheers. So nice rye and citrus punch right up front. It's tickling the front and the middle of the palate, but I'm not feeling much towards the back of my tongue. As with that rye, the bourbon, should I say, that hit everywhere. Like it literally, you took a sip and it's like your whole tongue was lit up, right? Like there was no real transition. It just hit the front, the mid, and the back at the same time and just sat there. This one is kind of the opposite. It hits the front and the mid, and it doesn't seem to transition too much to the back. Getting a little bit of that stickiness to the inside of the cheeks, but the mouthfeel of the bourbon, is steps above the mouthfeel of this rye. We're going to take another sip, though, to see if that changes or not, but that first sip was good. but slightly underwhelming coming off of that bourbon. Second sip, a little bit more intense on the flavors. It does transition a little bit more now towards the back of the palate, but it's funny. Like it's almost like a stop sign is hit like 3/4, or stop signs placed like 3/4 of my tongue. Like it gets to the 3/4 of it, then right before the end, it just stops right there. Like I don't have anything right on the back of the palate, which is kind of crazy. Everything is up front in like 3/4 of my tongue. I don't know if I really had a whiskey that did that. Like I've had stuff that kind of fell off like a cliff, you know what I mean? Like midway through, but this went 3/4 and just bloop, stopped, which is kind of insane. But as for the nose, guys, pretty good nose. Could it be better? Yeah. But some nice depth. You get that age on there. It is 11 years, right, which is expected. I have it as a 1 thumbs up on the nose. If we're looking at palate, I do got it as a thumbs up as well versus 2. If it transitioned to the back of the palate like the bourbon did, this probably would have been a 2 thumbs up for me. But nice flavors. Like I can't knock the whiskey. It's good whiskey. Just leaves me wanting a little bit more. Versus, you know, that bourbon kind of just hitting in all the right places. You know, that like I literally, like I said, didn't have to take a sip again earlier, guys, and I could have kind of went through that whole experience again with the bourbon. Not the case with the rye, but nice, good flavors. The price is going to be what's comes into question with this, right? Because I've had some similar whiskeys and or ryes, you know, MGP at this age statement, almost half the cost, that I could arguably say that were probably better than this one, you know, but not to take away from it. It's definitely a good pour. If you take that price point out of the question, you know, which is tough with some of these ryes, right? I do got the finish, guys, at a 1 thumbs up as well. It's not a 2. It's not shining on the finish, but the flavors transition pretty nicely, but it's like an abrupt stop towards the back, which just leaves me wanting a bit more. But the flavors in general up front are really, really nice. We're going to take another sip. Yeah. In terms of profile, pretty similar to the other 11 years. Just those ones seem to just hit a little bit stronger on the mouthfeel and on the finish. And this one's 126 proof. I want to say it's higher proof than some of the other ones that I do have. Like, and I have one here, guys. I know I reviewed this. It's a 10-year, just 10-year, 11 months. So 1 month shy of 11 years. And this was 120.6 proof. So 6 proof points less. And this is like probably my top rye of the year. Actually, I don't think it's probably. I think this is my top rye of the year. This single barrel from Traverse City was absolutely stellar. You know, similar color too, guys. So it's pretty much all the same source, right? But just obviously aged in different parts of the country, and or maybe different barrels being used to age them in, which gives them that difference in profile, right? But Traverse City, that specific single barrel is killer. And I want to say it was only $110 or something like that, 120 max, right? Versus the rare character being 120. All right, if you look at the scores, guys, 85, it does have some nice scores. The value is the only thing that really kind of brought this down for me. 85 on the flavor, 84 on the experience, which is a really good whiskey for us when we're in terms of grading. If we look at how this ranked total and final score for me was 83, which is not on the lower end. Anything over 80 is still really good whiskey, but we're looking at everything that I've scored so far for 2024, guys. It's 21 out of 23, right? So towards the tail end, but I've drank a lot of really good whiskey, so that doesn't really mean that this is bad. You're looking at the score, right? 83. You know, I think the lowest on 2024 was a 79, which ironically I think was the Heaven Hill 18, right? Which is kind of crazy. All-time ranking, guys, out of 107 things that I've scored, this was tied at 70. You know, so not a bad whiskey, just like I said, leaves me wanting a little bit more on the tail end of the palate. and or maybe a little bit more on the nose, but enjoyable for sure. We're going to take this last sip and we're going to wrap it up, guys. Yeah, just overall a really good whiskey. Would I search this one out? Probably not, guys, just being honest with you. Like, if I seen this, it's not something that I'll probably pull the trigger on in the store. The bourbon, on the other hand, I think if you found that at retail, it's worth maybe splurging a bit on. But outside of that, I would probably leave the rye on the shelf, and focus a little bit more on the bourbon, because that's like a full experience of a whiskey versus the rye just lacking in a couple areas. But thanks, guys, for sticking with me so far. It's been a bit. It's probably one of my longest reviews. Hopefully you stuck to the end. We're going to kick it off next week probably with another review, guys. We're going to keep it trucking, then dive into some more blinds just to, keep that palate fresh. Got some tournaments in the works, so just got to stay on my toes. But thank you, everybody that stuck with me so far. Hit that like and subscribe. We're going to end this off. Cheers.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you